What if the files that could expose everything were buried in plain sight? What if the people who once promised the truth were now the very ones hiding it? This isn't some distant political drama. It's unfolding right inside Congress. And at the center of it all are powerful figures who swore transparency, only to go silent the moment the questions got too close. Viewers around the country couldn't believe what they saw when Congressman Dan Goldman decided to ask the one question no one else dared. What happened to the Epstein files? The hearing started like any other, routine, procedural, predictable. But when Goldman took the microphone, the atmosphere shifted. His tone cut through the room like a blade. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. He didn't even raise his voice. Instead, he asked the question everyone was thinking, but no one dared say out loud.
Possibly deporting them despite the fact that they are here legally. You would think the committee with jurisdiction over the Department of Homeland Security would want to conduct oversight over the department's refusal to allow members of Congress to observe the conditions of DHS detention facilities. In fact, there is a specific statute that authorizes both Republicans and Democrats to conduct oversight over facilities that house or detain immigrants. But no, the department refuses. So we're here in the Homeland Security Committee, and I'm sure the Republican majority does not like it when this administration undermines its own authority, its own statutory authority, to conduct oversight. But no, instead of all of that, we are here talking yet again about Joe Biden. Newsflash, Joe Biden is not the president. He hasn't been the president for 7 months. So if we are going to conduct oversight here, why are we doing it about the Biden administration when this administration is literally detaining lawful permanent residents and even some U.S. citizens? And it gets worse. It's not just those masked ICE agents. There are many FBI agents who are being called away from their duties to investigate terrorism, violent gangs, child trafficking, and other crimes in order to help ICE arrest and detain immigrants with legal asylum claims, nonviolent. That makes our homeland less safe, not more safe. So we should hear from FBI Director Kash Patel about how many of his criminal investigators are being taken away from their criminal investigatory jobs, keeping Americans safe in order to help round up non-criminal immigrants trying to immigrate the right way. Some of these detainees are being held in Bureau of Prisons detention centers that are unfit for convicted criminals to stay in. We should hear from Pam Bondi about how much of the department's resources are being used to detain these nonviolent, non-criminal immigration detainees. And while they're here, we can ask them about a very pressing question. What's going on with the Epstein files? Donald Trump promised to release them. Pam Bondi said she had the files on her desk and that she was going to release them in the name of transparency. Kash Patel has spent years railing against the FBI to release the files. Many of my Republican colleagues were banging on the table to release the Epstein files. But now, all of a sudden, after a months-long review, Bondi and Patel say nothing to see here, no evidence that any American would want to see about accomplices, co-conspirators, or other people involved. Yesterday, the Republicans voted against releasing the files. So what's changed? Well, we all know Donald Trump has had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He flew on his plane, he hung out at parties, spoke highly of him. And now there are many people saying that Donald Trump is included in the Epstein files. In fact, there are reporters who say that there are videos of him with topless women. Elon Musk even confirmed that Trump is blocking the release of these files because he's in them. Pam Bondi says there's nothing there. But Donald Trump even acknowledges that there is evidence there. It's just not credible. It's made up. This is a True Social post from 9:43 this morning. It is an admission that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files, and the American people deserve to know whether he is or not.
Mr. Garbarino
Mr.
is
Chairman, I would,
recognized for 5
pursuant to
minutes for
Clause
questioning.
2K6 of Rule
Gentleman is
11,
not recognized. Your time has expired.
I have a motion.
Mr. Garbarino
Chairman.
is recognized for questioning.
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman has a motion.
Pursuant to Clause 2K6 of Rule 11, I move that the committee subpoena Pam Bondi, Attorney General of the United States, and Pam Bondi, the Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Mr. Chairman, motion to table.
Gentleman has a motion.
Motion to table.
Motion to table is privileged and non-debatable.
Pam Bondi, once a fierce advocate for truth and accountability, sat silent as Goldman demanded answers. The file she once said sat on her desk, ready to be released, had somehow disappeared into a maze of bureaucratic fog. Kash Patel, who'd built his reputation railing against secrecy and cover-ups, now stood shoulder to shoulder with Bondi, insisting there was nothing there. The silence spoke louder than any denial. Viewers watching the footage couldn't look away. The tension was real. It wasn't just about the files. It was about the integrity of the people holding them. Goldman's expression made it clear he wasn't buying a word of it. He leaned forward, subpoena in hand, and asked again, "Where are the files?" The air in the room grew heavy. The officials shifted in their seats. Cameras clicked. And in that moment, the question wasn't just about paperwork. It was about power. Rewind a few months, and the story sounds very different. Back then, transparency was the word of the day. Bondi told reporters she was committed to full disclosure. "The public deserves the truth," she said. Patel echoed the same message, promising that every name, every document connected to the Epstein investigation would be made public. The rhetoric was fiery, the tone righteous. It wasn't about politics, they said, it was about justice. But when the review began inside the Department of Justice, that fire slowly went out. Meetings were canceled. Reporters' questions went unanswered. And when the so-called review ended, the conclusion was a single, hollow phrase. "Nothing to see here, but there was plenty to see, if you knew where to look." A leaked memo hinted that several agents had raised internal objections about how the evidence was handled. Whispers began spreading through Washington that the files contained more than names. They contained patterns, connections between influential people who'd once brushed shoulders at exclusive gatherings. None of this has been proven, but the speculation was enough to ignite public outrage. And then came something no one expected, a post on social media that changed everything to 9:43 a.m. A statement appeared online, defensive, dismissive, and yet strangely revealing. The author insisted the so-called evidence was made up, not credible, and fabricated by the media. But here's the problem. No one had publicly accused this person yet. The post itself was an unintentional admission that the name everyone suspected really did appear in the files. It was a confession disguised as denial, and it set the internet on fire. Elon Musk joined the conversation within hours, hinting that the files had been quietly suppressed because powerful people don't want this story out. Musk didn't provide proof, but he didn't need to. His comments amplified what millions were already thinking. The silence wasn't about national security. It was about self-preservation. By the time Goldman stepped into that committee hearing, frustration had reached a boiling point. He wasn't just asking questions for the record. He was exposing hypocrisy in real time. While the committee was supposed to be investigating the Department of Homeland Security, Goldman redirected the focus to the Department of Justice and its handling of the Epstein materials. He pointed out that the same administration claiming to defend the law was actively defying it by refusing congressional oversight. Members of Congress were being blocked from visiting detention centers, even though federal law explicitly allows it. "If you can't follow the oversight laws," Goldman said sharply, "how can anyone trust you to handle evidence tied to one of the most serious investigations in modern history?" That line hit like a punch. Bondi looked down at her notes. Patel stared straight ahead. Neither of them said a word. Outside the hearing, cameras rolled, journalists scrambled, and hashtags began trending within minutes. Hashtag release the files wasn't just a slogan anymore. It was a demand. People wanted to know why the same leaders who once promised to expose the elite were now the ones burying the truth. According to reports, Bondi had received multiple formal requests from congressional committees to release the Epstein materials for public viewing. Each time, her office cited ongoing legal reviews or confidential investigative protocols. But insiders whispered that the review had already been completed weeks earlier, and that the conclusions weren't what leadership wanted the public to see. Some claim the findings included names of public figures and foreign officials that could cause diplomatic fallout. Others believe it revealed the extent to which influential donors and political operatives had mingled with Epstein's network. Again, these claims remain unverified, but the sheer number of consistent reports made them impossible to ignore. Elon Musk added another spark when he commented during a podcast that the files are real, but they're being delayed by people who have too much to lose. The host laughed nervously, asking if he meant government officials. Musk didn't answer. He just smiled. The clip went viral within hours. The next morning, journalists pressed Bondi's team for a response. They declined to comment. That silence only fueled speculation that something enormous was being hidden. Then, the subpoenas landed. Goldman had officially filed the paperwork, demanding that Bondi's office produce the full Epstein documentation for congressional review. It was a bold move, one that broke through months of deflection. If there's nothing there, Goldman said, then prove it. Show the public. The reaction was instant. Supporters called it a step toward transparency. Critics accused him of political grandstanding. But what no one could deny was the timing. Right after that revealing social post, and right after Musk's remarks. It was as if the dam had finally cracked, and Goldman was prying it open. Inside that committee room, the confrontation was more than political theater. It was about control over information, narrative, and accountability. Bondi's expression barely changed, but her silence was deafening. Goldman kept pressing, connecting the dots between the stalled release, the vanished review, and the sudden policy shift inside the Department of Justice. Patel's earlier statements about exposing corruption resurfaced on social media, and users began comparing his past promises to his present silence. It became clear that the same team that once championed transparency was now dodging every question about it. Outside of Congress, the story spread like wildfire. Independent journalists dug up archived footage of Bondi promising to release the files, no matter who it exposed. Commentators replayed clips of Patel accusing others of hiding evidence. Now, the roles had reversed, and the hypocrisy was impossible to ignore. Rumors circulated that internal investigators had been reassigned, that critical agents were pulled from other duties to assist in document management rather than criminal investigation. Goldman hinted that this reallocation of resources may have been deliberate, diverting manpower from terrorism and trafficking cases to keep sensitive information buried. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. While DHS was detaining non-criminal immigrants in overcrowded facilities, claiming limited resources, the FBI was allegedly redirecting investigators away from real crime to paperwork suppression. Goldman's voice trembled with controlled outrage as he laid it out. "You're protecting the wrong people." He wasn't exaggerating. Multiple oversight statutes were being ignored. Even visits by lawmakers to detention centers were denied, despite clear legal authorization. The pattern of secrecy wasn't limited to one department. It stretched across agencies, coordinated and deliberate. At this point in the hearing, the tension was palpable. Bondi shifted in her seat, Patel crossed his arms, and the cameras zoomed in. Goldman's closing question landed like a hammer. "Who are you protecting?" No one answered. The silence was the answer. The clip went viral that night, hitting millions of views in hours. Comment sections filled with speculation, frustration, and disbelief. Some called it the hearing that broke the facade. Others said it was the closest thing to an admission we'll ever get. Either way, people were paying attention to in the days that followed. Journalists reported a flurry of behind-the-scenes activity. Congressional aides described panic emails and late-night meetings. Bondi's office released a brief statement saying they were reviewing the subpoena. Patel declined to comment entirely. But Goldman wasn't backing down. He framed the issue not as partisan theater, but as a matter of accountability. "This isn't about sides," he told reporters. "It's about truth. And the truth doesn't disappear because someone powerful wants it to." That quote defined the story. It wasn't just about the Epstein files anymore. It was about the principle of transparency itself. If those in charge of enforcing the law are hiding behind it, what does that mean for the system as a whole? Even moderate lawmakers began calling for an independent review of how the files were handled. Civil rights groups demanded public access. The phrase, "no one is above the law," started trending again, not as a slogan, but as a demand to be why now. The hearing had shifted public focus back to the core question: why did the people who promised to reveal everything suddenly go dark? Theories multiplied, but one thread ran through all of them: fear. Fear of what those files might reveal, fear of who might be implicated, and fear of the public reaction if the truth ever came out. And maybe that's why the silence feels louder than denial. Dan Goldman's move wasn't just about one case. It was about setting a precedent. When agencies can bury evidence under the excuse of review, democracy starts to rot from the inside. His confrontation reminded viewers that power doesn't like sunlight, and those who shine it often face the harshest pushback. But sometimes, it only takes one moment of courage to force a reckoning. That hearing was one of those moments. And for Pam Bondi, the silence is becoming impossible to maintain. Every interview she skips, every question she deflects, adds another layer to the story. The more she avoids, the more people start to wonder what's really inside those files. Was it ever about national security, or just personal protection? Elon Musk's cryptic comments keep resurfacing, fueling even more curiosity. Each day the files remain sealed. The speculation grows to the end of the day. This story isn't just about one set of documents. It's about trust in government, in oversight, in the promise that no one is untouchable. If the truth can be buried this easily, then every citizen should be asking the same question Goldman did. Who are you protecting? Because accountability doesn't come from silence. It comes from pressure, from persistence, from people refusing to look away. And that's where you come in. The only reason these hearings matter, the only reason any of this surfaces, is because people keep watching, questioning, and demanding answers. So if you believe that the truth should never be hidden, if you believe that power should answer to the people, then don't stay silent. Hit the like button, drop a comment, and subscribe. Because justice doesn't happen quietly. It happens when we demand it, loudly, relentlessly, and together.